All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. We are back in my recording studio library for this video. As you know, I apologize for the things coming out of my nose. I just spent 5 months in the hospital. If you want to watch the videos about why I was in the hospital, just type in my last name, Durfee, and the word hospital, and there's 3 or 4 videos about the physical ailments that I just suffered through, but I'm still in recovery. Thus, we've got... Anyway, today we're going to be reviewing Stephen King's You Like It Darker collection of short stories. This book came out in May 2024. I'm filming this video in August. Normally, Stephen King books are, I immediately buy them and read them the day that I buy them. However, I was in the hospital when this one came out, so I wasn't able to get to it till just now. But anyway, let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustrations. This has got a cool one. It looks like a mountain at first glance, but it's actually an alligator kind of resting in a pond, and you can kind of go around and see it. But anyway, the illustration was done by, let's see who it was done by. It looks like Crocodile by Shutterstock. Well, it was done by just a big company of graphic designers. Anyway, let's talk about the book itself. This is not a novel. This is a collection of 12 short stories. As you know, short stories are not my favorite thing in the world. I do read all of Stephen King short story collections, though. So, and I collect all the Stephen King books in hardcover, as you can see back here. I also collect all of his books in paperback. And I have every single one of his books in audio from Audible. So everybody should buy their favorite authors in hardcover, paperback, and audio. Not ebook, because ebooks suck. But anyway, that's just me. Okay, so 12 stories. 12 short stories. I actually think this collection of short stories is one of his better collections of short stories to come about in a while. Let's talk about the first one. We'll go through each one of them one at a time and give a brief description and what I thought of it. But the first short story was called The Two Talented Bastards. It's about 2 men growing up in Maine. They're normal, just normal guys. I think they work for the sanitation department. One is a kind of a struggling writer. One is a struggling artist. But then in their 40s, they get really, really, really famous. Just both of them almost overnight. But that all kind of goes back to a deer hunt that they were on in 1978. And while they were on that deer hunt, something changed. They saw something in the woods, or something happened to the woods. In the woods, I won't tell you what it was, but something happened and they were able to gain fame and fortune later on in life through a lot of talent and hard work and some supernatural help. Maybe. Or maybe it was help from somewhere off this planet. I don't know. You'll have to read. The second, I gave that one a 10 out of 10. I really enjoyed that story. It was one of the longer stories in the book. I really enjoyed it. I opened up a Stephen King book every time. I feel like I'm going back to one of my favorite places in the world because I love Stephen King's writing, and I was just really into it. The second book was called The Fifth Step. The second story was called The Fifth Step. And it was basically about a man, and it's pretty dark. It's basically about a man who's in Alcoholics Anonymous who is confessing to a stranger something secret about his life. But what is that secret? And it ends, it's got a very twisted Stephen King-esque dark ending. But it's a pretty short story, maybe 10 pages. And then the third short story was Willie the Weirdo. And that is about a weird kid who gets bullied in school It's got a lot of COVID. It's got talks a lot about COVID. Stephen King is obsessed with COVID in his last 3 or 4 books. I just said the word COVID, which means this entire YouTube video will be demonetized by YouTube. It just will. But anyway, Willie the Weirdo, he's a kid who gets bullied. It sort of spirals out of control. I gave that one about a 6 out of 10. It wasn't really my favorite. Then there's a novella called Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream. This one was a 10 out of 10. I really like this. This was about a guy who dreams of a dog digging up a dead body, and then he goes to investigate this thing, and to see if what he dreamed was real, and if the body is really where his dream said it was. And oh my God, again, everything spirals out of control from that point into Stephen King madness. I really like that one. That one was a fairly long story. Then the next story was Finn. It was about a dude who gets kidnapped. Gosh, he just gets kidnapped. He doesn't know who his kidnappers are. Weirdness ensues. Very weird stuff in this one. I gave this one about a 6 out of 10. On the Side of the Road is the next story. That is about a family on a trip. Their car ends up in the ditch. 2 strangers, creepy strangers, come to help them. And of course, nothing can go right with that scenario. That was pretty good. I liked that. It was about a 9 out of 10. Red Screen was a very, very short one. Nothing memorable about it. I just didn't even rate that one. The Turbulence Expert is the next story. It is, I guess it basically asks the question, are there folks who can predict turbulence before it happens on a plane flight? And like air marshals, are they on every plane that we ever fly in to calm the turbulence down so there are no crashes? That's the premise of the story. I won't get into how that turns out. That one, I didn't care for. Again, it was another one. I probably gave that one a 5 out of 10. Lori is a story. Well, and that's where the cover comes from. A gator and a dog. It's about a gator and a dog. That's about it. It's about a 7 out of 10. Rattlesnakes was probably the longest story in the book. It's a novella. It's a bit of a sequel to Cujo, but it's set in Florida, has some of the same characters, but now rather than Cujo and St. Bernards, it's a rattlesnakes. But I wasn't expecting a sequel to Cujo, of all things. That one was pretty good. That was about an 8 out of 10. The Dreamers, kind of like the other story that came before, Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, where he dreamed about the dog digging up the body. The Dreamers is kind of the same plot. It's like it's people who dream of things that are going to happen in the future and things like that. I gave it about a 5 out of 10 just because I thought it was repetitive to the other story. And then the very last story in the book is The Answer Man, and that is set in the 1930s. It is about kind of a carnival worker. Well, not really a carnival worker, a roadside carnival worker that charges people to answer questions. Like, he gives them 3 questions. And his answers are always very cryptic. And they always predict the future. Because the story is told from the perspective of a certain character who keeps asking questions of this guy. He keeps going back to ask questions of this guy. And it seems like 30, 40 years later, stuff comes true. So he keeps trying to find the guy. That's the basic plot. I didn't give away any of the spoilers, though. Overall, I would give the new Stephen King book of short stories. Well, I gave The Answer Man, the final one, about a 9 out of 10. That was a pretty entertaining story. But overall, I give the whole thing an 8 out of 10, which is a pretty high score for me and Stephen King short stories. But anyway, that is what it is. And we'll see you next time.